Here everyone, Rajat here, back again with yet another video. So building an authentication system for your web application can be a cumbersome and a painful task for any web developer or backend developer out there, because if you have devoted some time in developing such systems, you know how hard that can be. And people use some sort of traditional methods to build such system, and traditionally that method, the most popular method, has been the cookie based authentication system. So if you can have a look at this particular diagram, you can see that on the left hand we have got this cookie authentication system going on. So in a traditional cookie based authentication, what you do is like you send your credentials over to a certain endpoint on the server, and then the server, after authenticating your credentials, if found correct, creates a session on the server itself, which means that it creates a file or a database entry, and then it also creates some random identifier which is known as a session identifier, and then it returns that identifier over to you, and that identifier is stored in a cookie. Okay, so now server and the client has some data. Okay, so based on that they can verify that whether the user is logged in or not. So the next time you make any sort of request, the cookie gets sent over to the server, and then the server can extract the session identifier from that cookie and verify that whether the user is already logged in or not. And if the credentials are correct, if he is logged in, then server can process the request further, and that is how cookie based authentication works. And this has been quite famous for decades, but recently token based authentication has been getting quite a lot of traction. The reason is that token based authentication is stateless, which means that you do not have to maintain a session on the server, and you just hand over a string over to the client and then you are done. You do not have to maintain the database entry or the file entry to do all the hula hoops for verifying the users. So the next time user want to get something done on your server and you want that request to be authorized, you can just ask that token from the user, and then you can process that token, and the token is a self-contained one. Now JWT is a very famous token authentication system. Okay, so JWT is basically known as JSON Web Token. So it is an open standard which has been getting quite a lot of traction and love from the developer community because it is very easy to use. Okay, so if you can have a look at the right side of this diagram, you can see that this is how a token based system works. So basically you send your credentials to the authentication server the very first time you are trying to get something done. Okay, so the server authenticates your credentials just like in a cookie based system, and then once it has verified your credentials, it creates a token and then it returns the token over to you, and there is no sort of server side database entry creation or something like that that happens on the server. Okay, so that token is returned over to the client, and then that client can store that token in its local storage or whatever storage mechanism it chooses. Okay, so it stores it, and then later on when it wants to perform some protective action, like action that requires some sort of authentication, he can just send the token along with the request, and then the server can extract all the necessary information from that token, and that is how token based authentication works. Now we know over to JWT.io, and there is a debugger section. Okay, so now that we know that what tokens are supposed to do, it's the time to know more about this JWT internal. So basically a JWT token looks like this thing. Okay, so this is the header part, this is the payload part, and this is the signature part. Okay, so let's have a close look at all three of these. So header part contains the information regarding which encoding algorithm has been used to encode the signature, okay, which is this one. Then the payload contains the main data which you want to exchange with the server, and then this last part, the third part, contains the signature. Okay, so now you have to notice one thing, that the primary goal of JWT or any token is not to encrypt the data. Its goal is to, or its responsibility is to make sure that the server or the client who is requesting the token can verify the origination of the data, which means that the client should be able to verify whether the token it has received from any source is a valid token or not, or it originated from the intended party or not. Okay, so this is the signature of any JSON web token. Okay, so head over to jwt.io, okay, and go to this debugger section. Okay, here you can create JWTs, and here you can also have a close look at what's going on and how JWTs are created. So as we have talked about, this is the header section, this is the payload section, and this is the signature section. Now if you look over to the right, here you can see that this is the header section. This is the base 64 encoded version of this particular JSON. Okay, so this is the header section. It basically contains some information regarding which algorithm has been used. So as you can see that this is the algorithm which has been used to encrypt the signature part. Okay, now comes the payload part, which is this bit, okay, the middle bit. So it contains the information, okay, whatever we want to pass. Now there are certain JWT claims which you can pass. So if you can have a look, that there are certain reserved claim, and then there are certain custom claims which you can create. So I have created this email custom claim, and then we have got some reserved claims. So what do I mean by reserved claims? By reserved claim, I mean that these claims are widely understood by the clients. Okay, so this IAT claim signifies the creation time or issued at time. Okay, and this EXP reserved claim signifies the expiration date for this particular token, and post that date this token will become invalid on its own. So the server who has received this token should not process the request further in case it has already expired, and it can do that sort of processing based on this particular reserved claim. Okay, so payload is supposed to work like that. So you can put all your data in this payload part. Okay, and then comes the third bit, which is this one, and it contains this particular algorithm. Okay, so basically you take the base 64 encoded version of this, put it here, then put one dot, then take base 64 version of this thing, append that thing, and then you take one signature. Okay, I mean one secret. So that secret is only known to your authentication server and your application server. So now basically there are two types of algorithms that are used to sign this last part. Okay, so there are asymmetric algorithms and then there are symmetric algorithms. The one we are using as of now is a symmetric algorithm, which means that whatever secret we are going to use here, okay, to sign our keys will only be shared between your authentication server and your application server. It will not be shared with any other party. So this is a symmetric algorithm. On the other hand, we also have asymmetric algorithm which uses the combination of public and private keys, which means that for creating the or for signing this last bit, it uses a private key, and then any client which is receiving this web token can verify the authenticity of this JWT by decrypting it with the public key, which can be distributed to any client out there. Okay, So this is a difference between asymmetric algorithms and symmetric algorithms, and you can generate tokens with both of these algorithms. So if you do not want to concern yourself with all of this technical jargon, you can just use the symmetric algorithms. You just have to ensure that you are not sharing your key, whatever key you are using to sign your last bit, with any unauthorized or unintended party. Okay, so now you must be wondering that all of that data is visible to anyone. This header portion is visible, this payload portion is visible. Then how JWT helps me in protecting my data? As we have already learned that the goal of JWT is not to encrypt the data. Its goal is to let the recipient verify whether the token originated from the intended party or not. Okay, so how it does that? So let's suppose we do not know this secret, whatever secret the server used to create the output of this thing. Okay, so we do not know this secret part. Okay, so let's suppose I tamper the data and change this data to b at b.b. Okay, so I know this part, but I do not know this secret, so I cannot generate this third part. Okay, so as soon as I send that tampered thing over to the backend, the backend will extract this payload, and then it will just try to run this algorithm, and it will place its secret in here. So if the data has been tampered with, this signature will not match because the secret was never known to us, so we were not able to create a signed version in this particular way. So that is how the recipient ensures that this data has been tampered with, because when you do not know the secret, you cannot generate this third part. Okay, you know the first two sections, but you do not know the last section. Okay, so that is how using secrets the JWT protects you from unauthorized access. Okay, so now you know the specifics of JWT, the utility of JWT, and how JWTs help us in verifying the authenticity of the data. Okay, so that is everything you need to know in order to use token based authentication in your system. Now there are certain questions which you might encounter, like people like to make comparisons between cookies and JWTs like they are in the same league. So people like to compare that whether they should be using tokens or cookies. The thing is that it's like comparing oranges to apples. So basically you can do token sort of authentication using cookies. So in cookies you can store data, and that data gets passed on to the server on every request your browser makes. On the other hand, token can only be passed when you choose to. So they are not practically the alternatives to each other. You can use both JWT tokens and cookies in your application to do some jobs. Okay, so just do not think that they are like the competitors. They are not. You can use both of them in the same application. So I think by now you have a solid understanding of JWTs. There are many libraries which can help you in setting up a JWT enabled system. So here is the laundry list of all such libraries which you can use in your project. And in case you have any more doubts regarding JWT, the comments section is your friend. I read every single comment you guys leave on this channel, so make sure in case you have any doubt you ask me in the comment section. Even if I'm not sure about the answer, I will make my own excursion and try to rectify your doubts to the best of my knowledge and to the best of my abilities. And having said that, we talk about software development, DevOps, computer science on this channel on weekly basis. So if you haven't subscribed yet, you should really subscribe in case you are interested in any of those things, because you are going to learn a lot from this channel, and that is the sole goal of this channel. So make sure you subscribe, and in case you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. That will help me in gaining some traction, and that will keep me motivated so that I can produce more such stuff for you guys. So I see you guys around over in the next video.